The main thing that you need to do, the main protection you need in life is to recognize the type of people who are manipulators before you get involved with them. So people who are malignant narcissists, for instance, and the game of people who are malignant narcissists is to infect your emotions, to gain control over your emotions, to create all kinds of drama where they're making you react, they're making you upset, and they're in complete control of that. Okay? So that's like one of the worst forms of manipulators that are out there. But once you get involved with someone like that, the way you can recognize that you're being manipulated is by the emotional reactions people are churning up that you cannot control. They're making you angry. They're making you upset. They're making you excited. And then that excitement changes into fear, into insecurity. You feel constantly emotional, like you're being played, right? But you don't realize it sometimes in the moment because when we get emotional, we don't think very well. We're not being very rational. So you can recognize it when people, by your reactions, by how emotional you are and how it's constantly shifting. The problem is that by the time you realize that, it's almost too late because you're so upset, you're so entangled in their power games that it's very hard to get yourself out of it. So the best defense in this world is to recognize the manipulators before you get involved with them. First of all, you notice that they have a track record, that they've manipulated other people, that they have a lot of enemies in this world, right? If they have a lot of enemies in this world, that must mean something, okay? But you also are attuned to their body language, to the nonverbal communication cues that people give. When people look at you, their eyes reveal a lot. Their eyes reveal that they're actually interested, they're actually engaging. Manipulators have this kind of distance in their eyes, as if they're thinking, as you can hear them thinking. They're not like looking at you. They're kind of going, wow, what can I say to get this person interested in me? The eyes reveal a lot about whether people are outwardly focused or inwardly focused. And be very attuned to the body language, to what seems authentic and what is fake. I mean, these are some cues, but the most important thing is to be aware of your emotions and how you're being played and how they're constantly shifting because of all the drama that this person is stirring up.
Mm-hmm. That's very useful. And those are some really great signs to look out for. And I always think about it as a roller coaster. Sorry?
Have you ever dealt with someone who's a great manipulator?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great
social manipulator. It was a woman. It was a girl, actually. She was quite young, but she had this, since she was a baby, she had this ability. I think it was just narcissism, to be honest. And I don't use that term lightly. I don't like throwing it around, but I think she was actually, if there's one person in the world, she was definitely diagnosed with narcissism. And, you know, she could just, take you on this roller coaster of emotions, from like hate to love to excitement to fear, everything you mentioned. And she could really control the group dynamic. So if she wanted someone excluded, she would make everyone else turn against the other person. And no one in the group actually liked her, but they were all kind of scared of her. And it wasn't like this was the boss or someone who had real power over other people, but the way she could manipulate people, honestly, it was impressive. You know, I didn't like her at all, but it was impressive. I was like, wow, this is crazy. So yeah, there's definitely people like that. And
it's amazing, as you say, what one person can do and how they can completely disrupt and dominate a group dynamic. You know, and you want to wonder, what is it about them and what is that skill or what are they doing that gives them that power? It's a fascinating subject. Why don't you like using the word narcissist?
I just think People nowadays throw it around.
Overused.
Overuse. Everyone's a narcissist. My mom's a narcissist. My dad's a narcissist. My boyfriend's a narcissist, because they did one thing. And I think we're all narcissists to a degree or another. I think it's a spectrum. And then, the people that are actually diagnosed with it, I think it was like 1 or 2% of the population, whereas everyone thinks everyone's a narcissist. So, I think there's a difference. Like, sure, you can have narcissistic qualities or behaviors, so you can be more narcissistic and then you can be more selfless in different contexts. But yeah, I just don't like to throw that term around, as easily as most people do.
Well, yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes, I do agree. In the Laws of Human Nature, I have a chapter on narcissism, and I say that we are all narcissists. We are all self-absorbed by our nature as human animals in the 21st century. It's unavoidable that we think first and foremost of ourselves, that we're more interested in our own ideas than other people's ideas. It's natural and it's normal. But what happens is that you have people who are somewhat healthy with their narcissism, they're aware of it, and they have a degree of self-love and self-respect, so that when bad things happen to them and they start feeling depressed and low, they're able to raise themselves back up because they have a degree of self-love. So self-love is not a bad thing. It's actually a very good and powerful thing. And what happens with terrible narcissists, the 1%, I would say, to me, I think it's more like 5%, but who knows? It's just a number.
You're probably right.
when bad things happen, and they start feeling upset and insecure, they don't have that self-love to raise them back up. The only way that they can feel okay about it is to start hurting other people, to start creating drama and getting attention. Instead of an internal voice that goes, "You're not so bad, let's just wait it out, things will get better." They go, "I'm so desperate, I'm so upset, I'm so angry, I have to get attention, I have to get other people, I have to manipulate other people." They cannot raise themselves back up. So to have some love for yourself, to have some self-esteem is actually a very good and positive and powerful thing.
Absolutely. And I think that's an amazing way to differentiate people who are actually narcissistic, diagnosed, and then people who are just, normal and are just on the spectrum, narcissistic spectrum. And
yeah, I think spectrum is a good word for it. Yeah.
And, you mentioned seduction, and you said also that manipulation is kind of part of it. I was wondering, what is seduction?
Well, seduction is a form of power. So, people have a weakness in life, okay? And the weakness that we all have, myself included, everybody on this planet, is that we don't have enough pleasure, okay? We don't have enough fun. We don't have enough excitement. We don't have enough theater and drama and things that raise us out of the banalities of everyday life. We're hungry for that, right? We have to work. We have to handle all the business things in our life. Life can be really drudgery and difficult and painful. And so that weakness is the fact that we want pleasure. We want to get out of our day-to-day world. We want to get out of the banalities that are weighing us down. So along comes a person, a man or a woman, or an animal, because animals seduce. And they say, all right, I'm going to give this person a taste of some pleasure, a taste of some thrill, a taste of some excitement. It could be sexual, but doesn't have to be sexual. It could be an adventure. Men are very much seduced by women who are offering an adventure because they like the thrill of the hunt. They like to chase. They like anything that has a little bit of danger involved. Okay. So what you're offering is something that people don't normally get in their day-to-day life. If you're a man or a woman and you know how to give people a taste of that pleasure and get them eating out of your hand and running after you, you are a master seducer or seductress. That is the art. It is knowing people's weakness and need to be taken out of their boring day-to-day life and playing on that to seduce them, to make them fall in love, to make them vote for you in an election, to sell them a product in marketing, whatever it is. It's all the same psychology.
So seduction is not just in the romantic context. It could be in any kind of context.
Of course. I mean, to win an election these days as a politician, you have to be really good at media, right? It's a new phenomenon. It wasn't necessarily like that 200 years ago. You have to, it's not that you're not just a good speaker, but you're good on television, you're good on social media, you're good, in any kind of image orientation, right? So you have to be a seducer. You have to know that voters are missing something. Usually in an election, what that is people want change. They're bored and they're tired with the same Labor Party, Republicans, Democrats. I want change. I want things different. You know how to appeal to that. You're a seducer. You're giving them something that they don't have. In marketing, you're figuring out audiences are so inundated with this particular approach. Here's a new approach that's going to get their attention, right? And make them excited. That's seduction. Okay? You're working in an office and you don't want to be sexually seducing people in your office, hopefully. Okay? But you know that people want to be liked. They want respect. They want validation. You want to feel that your ideas are great ideas. Well, that's what that person does in the work office. It's called a charmer. That's one of the types of seducers. They know how to make you feel great about yourself. That's a seduction. Social, political, sexual, marketing, it's all the same.
Very interesting. So besides the charmer, what are the other archetypes of seduction?
Well, starting at the beginning, there's the siren. So I maintain in the art of seduction that it is women that invented the art of seduction, and the most ancient archetypes of seduction are women. And the siren is the preeminent female seductress. And it has a very physical component to it. A siren has a very powerful sexual energy that isn't obvious. It's not like they go around naked or anything, but it's in their aura. I often, when I'm watching a movie and I'm looking at actresses, I can feel it in them. I don't know what it is exactly, but I know one of the archetypes that I talk about is Marilyn Monroe. And Marilyn Monroe would literally make love to the camera. She wanted you to love her, right? And so she was so vulnerable and so open. And that gave her that kind of siren presence. But it's a sort of physical quality that only really a man can appreciate, because the siren is a powerful seductress of men. A man feels that energy in the woman and is really drawn to it. Also, sirens are very theatrical. They create a lot of drama. They create fantasy. Like Cleopatra was creating incredible fantasies. So that's the siren. On the flip side is the male seducer, because all the other types can be male or female, but these two types are generally one or the other, is the rake. That's the most primal, powerful form of male seduction, is the rake. And the rake is a man who really understands and really likes women. He's very interested in women. He was probably had sisters and had a strong mother, and he was around women. He likes them. He appreciates them. He understands their psychology, their needs. The thing is, he's never satisfied by one woman. It's after a couple of months, he's on to somebody else, okay? But in those 2 months that a rake is interested in you, no woman can resist him, because he fills you with so much attention that's so focused on you. And it's not like creepy attention. It's not like a stalking attention. It's loving, romantic attention that you don't get from any other man, because men are so interested in their work and their business. They don't care about women's things. this man is all focused on you. He understands you. He's giving you what you want. No woman can resist it. And men who are rakes are also very good with words, because words are the woman's weakness. A man who can speak well, who can weave stories and poetic things with his tongue, is extremely seductive, right? For men, it's appearances, it's visuals, it's that sexual energy. For women, a lot of it revolves around words and ideas and thoughts and concepts and fantasies that a man can evoke. That is the rake, right? No man can resist a siren, and no woman can resist a true rake. The other types are like the dandy, which is a type of man or woman who has qualities of the opposite sex, the other gender. So it's a man with a touch of femininity. It's a woman with a touch of masculinity. And believe it or not, that has very, very powerful sexual and social appeal to people. I could go into why that is, but that's a very powerful type. There is the natural, which is somebody who has a very childlike ability. They're spontaneous. They may be in their 20s, but you have the feeling that they're 5 years old. They're so real and natural and spontaneous and kind of helpless and vulnerable. You go, wow, that's lovable. I want that person. There's the coquette, which traditionally is a woman but can be a man, is the one who plays hot and cold. They're suddenly so excited about you, their eyes will go, wow, there's something going on there. And then the next minute they're all cold and distant, and they've completely wrapped you around your finger by this pattern of coldness and hotness. There are a few others, but I don't want to exhaust the list. That gives you an idea.
Super interesting. Yeah, thank you so much for
the whole list.
No, that was good enough. And yeah, I think, but those are kind of most of them, right? So that was really.
There's like 5 or 6 of the 9, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And for someone who's listening right now and they're thinking, this sounds amazing, but they don't necessarily feel seductive, or they don't feel like they have any of those qualities, or they don't feel like they're attracting someone. Is there a way for someone to cultivate this magnetic, seductive aura?
Yeah.
How do they do it?
It's very simple. I mean, there are many different ways to get there, but there's one path that is the most powerful of all. And that is to be more interested in other people. So what makes you unseductive, what I call anti-seductive, is that you're so self-absorbed. You're only thinking about yourself. You're insecure. You're worried about what people think about you. You're constantly going, am I saying the right things to this woman in the bar? Is she bored? You're so wrapped up in your own thoughts that you're not paying attention. The ability to get outside of yourself, and you can practice this. The problem nowadays is everything is virtual. You're swiping to find somebody. You need to practice this on people in the world and not virtually, okay? And the practice is this: thinking about them. So if I were interested in you, Francesca, right now, just as a scenario, right? And I was trying to seduce you, okay? And we were in a restaurant or a bar, I'd be focusing on who you are, what your world is like. I would be asking questions that aren't obvious, but that show that I'm interested in your world, how you think, what's going on with you, what was your childhood like? I get you to talk about yourself. People never feel like they're the star of the show. They never feel like they get to talk about themselves. You get the other person to talk because you're focused on them. You're not focused on yourself, right? I'm interested in you. I'm interested in what makes Francesca tick. What were her horrible experiences with boyfriends in the past and why? I'm trying to get inside of your world and think like you think so I can understand what it is that you're missing in life, okay? What makes people bad at the game is they can't get inside of other people. They're so locked in their heads. They're can only think about what they need, what they want, what they think is funny, or what they think is interesting. But you have to think of what the other person finds interesting. I have this famous quote that I'm going to mangle terribly in The Art of Seduction, where in England in the 19th century, there were these two political rivals, Benjamin Disraeli, who was a great prime minister, and this other man, I can't remember what his name was, Goldsmith maybe, Gold something or other. Sorry. And Disraeli was the master seducer, and this woman, this princess or whatever, was at a party, an evening with them, and she said, sitting next to Mr. Goldsmith, whatever his name was, I thought he was the most interesting man in the world. Sitting next to Mr. Disraeli, I thought I was the most interesting person in the world. That is what charm, that is what seduction is. So you're not trying to impress people with how brilliant you are. You're trying to make them feel brilliant. You're trying to make them feel wonderful and great, not you. Get out of yourself, get out of your world, get out of your own problems and get inside other people, inside their minds, ask questions. And then, this is a very brilliant seduction technique. When somebody says something that seems kind of interesting or telling, the next day or later that evening, you come back to them and you quote what they were saying in some context. What this reveals is that you were listening to them, that you retained something that they said that was very personal, and you've quoted it back to them, not in an obvious way, but it reveals indirectly that you were truly listening to them. Man, that is powerful, because people don't listen to each other anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense. And I think a lot of women are complaining about that. They're going on dates and they feel like the guy hasn't asked them any questions, or they only talked about themselves. And, it seems like a simple ask, like, please just ask me some questions, but you'd be surprised how little it actually happens.
Well, that's men's weakness when it comes to seduction. They talk too much about themselves. It's a terrible quality.
Are there you mentioned some anti-seductive qualities. Are there other habits that maybe people are doing unconsciously that are anti-seductive?
Well, one quality is moralizing and judging, and always judging other people and judging them for what they said and judging them for what they look and judging from the clothes that they wear and judging them for their friends and their political opinions. That is completely unseductive. Being moralizing and superior, that will put anybody off, okay? Being so insecure that you're always worried about what you're going to say and whether you're pleasing people, we can read that kind of insecurity on people. It's very anti-seductive, insecurity. The lack of generosity. So, if you're a man, I'm being very traditional here, so I don't know, it's probably not very good for the 21st century. But pay the money, pick up the bill. Don't be tight. Don't be such a tightwad. Don't be having always to split the bill. Pay for things. Give generous gifts. But not just material things. Be generous with your attention, right? So you're somebody that's always involved in your business and your work, and you have no time for your partner or the person you're trying to seduce. Do the opposite and be generous with the time that you give them. If the woman, for instance, if it's a man or woman, the woman knows that you're very busy, okay? But if suddenly you take off a complete day and you say, let's just go off and do our things and let's just be together for that whole day, that's powerful. You're being generous with your spirit. You're being generous with your time. That is, lack of that is a very anti-seductive quality. Those are some of them. Once again, I could go through all 10, but I'm just going to leave it at that for now.
Yeah, I think those are so spot on. Yeah, absolutely. And I can so much resonate with that. And
the one I left out, what I kind of mentioned, is the talker, the big talker, the person that's always bragging and saying, God, I was so great, and look at all the wonderful things I've done, and all the people that have been interested in me, and all the things I've accomplished, and how many books I've written, and how fantastic, and how many followers I have on Instagram. Man, that is really anti-seductive.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you mentioning generosity, I think it applies to both
Yeah,
men and women.
sure.
And, even if you, for instance, I remember going out with this like girl, just like as friends. And I think it was like we met at the book club and then we went for a coffee. And at the end, she picked up the bill and like she paid for it. And I was like, wow, that had never happened to me before with a woman, like a friend has never really paid for my coffee before. And I really appreciated that. It really made me like her more. And then the other example is, I don't know what it is about the UK, but on birthdays, people don't bring you gifts. Whereas where I'm from, which is Romania, people always bring you thoughtful, really
Romania.
nice gifts, and they
Romania.
pay for
Yeah.
things and they invest money and time. And then it was such a shock to see, I made some British friends and they came to my birthday and they came empty handed. And I had to adjust to
When
this
is your
culture, but
your birthday, Francesca?
it's on the 28th of March.
20th of March?
28th.
20th,
28th.
28th of March.
Yeah.
Okay, I have friends with that. So you're an Aries.
Yes, I'm an
Yeah.
Aries. How about you? When's your
Well,
birthday?
May 14.
So are you a
Taurus.
Taurus? Yeah. Oh, very
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, I
Well,
think,
yes.
it really
Well,
puts you off when people aren't being generous.
On the subject of gifts, gifts are a very important topic in the art of seduction. And what you must understand is the power of a gift isn't necessarily in the money that you've spent on it. It's in the thoughtfulness of it. And the thoughtfulness is you're giving them something that appeals to them as an individual. This is the other thing about seduction that you need to understand. Back in the early 2000s, we had this big thing about the pickup artist, right? Particularly in Los Angeles, the game, playing the game. Men knew all these techniques for how to seduce women. The problem was that it wasn't geared towards a woman who, as an individual, her specific needs. It was just this kind of general strategies that you applied. And women could see through it. It was very off-putting. So you're dealing with people as an individual. You, Francesca, have your own needs, your own interests, your own peculiar tastes. If I give you a gift that shows I understand who you are as an individual, I give you some music that I know is your taste, or I give you not just flowers, not just the general cliched stuff, but something that shows that I was listening to you, that I understand you, that the gift is personal. It's not just that it was expensive, but that there was some thinking going on in it. That is the more seductive, powerful way to give a gift.
Absolutely. And women really appreciate that. Probably men as well,
Yeah.
but I'd say particularly
Men
women.
do too. Men
Yeah.
do too.
Very interesting. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned charm and charisma. Are charisma and seduction the same thing, or are they different?
Well, one of the types of seducers that I did not mention was the charismatic. So it's definitely a form of seduction. And the idea is, backing up a little bit here, seduction and the art of seduction is a language. It's a language that you are learning. It's not a language of words. It's a language of actions. It's a language of your body, of how you present yourself. It's how you dress, how you look, how you smell. It's a pre-verbal language that you have to learn. It's about giving gifts. It's about where you take people, okay? So we humans are very attuned to people's nonverbal communication, to their body language. We pick it up. It's the animal part of ourselves, right? And it's very powerful and it's very seductive, okay? So a charismatic has very, very, very powerful body language. And what is that? They believe something so strongly. They're so certain about something powerful about their world or what they want, that it radiates to them. It's like there's a light bulb inside of them that you can't see, but that animates all their gestures, their eyes, their mouth, their expression. They seem alive. It's almost a slight sexual energy, but it's this energy of self-belief, of confidence, of wanting people to like them, right? This is the kind of power that a Marilyn Monroe had before the camera. And it's extremely powerful. You can read it in people, right? So it's very important for a political figure or an actor or somebody in the public eye to have that quality, right? And it can't be faked. That's the thing about it. The thing that's interesting about people with charisma that I discovered in my research is that they generally come from troubled, bad backgrounds. They had bad childhoods. They were abused. They were neglected. They were abandoned, right? And what happens in that scenario is they didn't get the love and attention that they needed from their parents, from their early caregivers, right? And so they need to get that love and attention from the public. That is how they get their sense of validation and love, not from mommy and daddy, but from a whole country, from an entire audience. You know, Winston Churchill had tremendous charisma, but it only came about during World War II in a time of crisis. But Winston Churchill came from was very much neglected as a child. John F. Kennedy, who had tremendous charisma, his father was extremely cruel and mean to him. Marilyn Monroe was basically raised in an orphanage. She never knew her parents. These types of people feel a tremendous need to get that what they want from the public, from a large public, and we can feel it in them non-verbally. It comes out in their face, in their manner, and these are elements of charisma.
That's so interesting how childhood trauma can make you super charismatic. What other ways, in what other ways does your childhood affect you when it comes to seduction or who you are attracted to?
Well, whole books could be written about that. You know, a lot of it is, so when we were very young, 1 or 2 years old, I mean, for boys, the mother figure had a very important impact on them, right? So it's different for girls because your early years are with somebody of your own gender, because generally, we're generalizing, but it's changing now, but women were more involved in the first 2 or 3 years of a child. It's not changing that much. It's still pretty much the same. So for a man, the impact of his mother on who he's attracted to is incredibly powerful, right? So, Carl Jung, the psychologist, you're probably familiar with him, right? He had this concept of the anima and the animus. And the anima is the image that a man carries in him of this kind of ideal woman. And it'll be a woman that will appear in his dreams. She's usually a little bit elusive. She's often maybe a little bit crazy or something, right? But it's a quality that's embedded in him from his mother, from that mother image that is deep, 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 deep down in his psyche. And so later in life, he will be interested, attracted to women who don't consciously conjure up the image of his mother. Unconsciously they do, in mannerisms, in certain vocal patterns, in the sound of their voice, in the fact that they have a nurturing quality or their lack of nurturing quality. But something about that mother figure is reflected there. Now women, on the other side, Jung called it the animus, and it's kind of the male, the masculine image in your head. And so the thing about the anima for men is that it's the woman part of their personality that is attracted to a woman. I know this sounds strange, but it's actually very interesting, and I've written about it. For women, it's the masculine part of inside of them, And it's that male voice that they've internalized from their father. And so that father figure, if he's abusive and negative and not loving, it still has a deep, deep, deep impact on their choices later on in life. It'll be, they don't want that type of man, okay? But that they don't want that type of the father, but the father is influencing that choice. Or there's a quality in that particular powerful figure that they were very much attracted to, and they're still striving for later in life. And then siblings have a very powerful impact on the choices that we have. Particularly if you're a man who has sisters or a girl who has brothers, those sisters and brothers get inside. Your early years, you were like a sponge, and you were absorbing people's energy, right? And it had a tremendous impact on you. You're not even aware of it. And so those siblings that you had, I had a sister who was 4 years older than me, had a very powerful impact on my mind and my interests in things. So the siblings and the parents have a very, very powerful effect on who we choose as partners later in life.
Absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. I don't think it's strange at all. I can absolutely see it around me and how people make these unconscious choices. I think that's why it's important not to take things personally, because the woman might be like, I gave him everything. I was so affectionate. And, maybe his mom was not affectionate, and that's what he was attracted to. And that's why he didn't choose you. So, it's not personal a lot of the times.
Well, that's a very good thing that you bring up, because it's important to not take anything personally in the game of seduction. So a lot of men, when you feel rejected by a woman, you get very angry and upset and kind of bitter, and you carry it with you, around with you. And the whole thing is, in seduction, you need to have a light touch. So if somebody rejected you, fine, I'm on to the next one. There are other women out there. There are other fish in the ocean. I learned something. I learned that I made a mistake. I learned that I'm not attractive to everyone. Fine, on to the next one. Don't take things personally, and don't get so heavy. Seduction is a realm of lightness.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people need to really integrate that advice, because rejection is quite hard, especially in today's world. And that was kind of like my next question is, how has seduction and love, how did they change in the modern world?
Well, I don't know if I'm the best person qualified to answer that, since I am, I'm in my 60s. So I'd hate to say that, but it's true. So I grew up in a different world, and I know that world very well. I don't know what it's like to be, in your 20s right now. I have no real access to that, but I know that it's much more difficult. So in my day and age, you only met a woman, or if you're gay, we've been very heterosexual here, but it applies to all persuasions. To meet somebody, you had to go out physically and do it, right? And it took for a man, this took a lot of kind of guts to go up and talk to somebody that you didn't know. It was almost kind of frightening. Then you got used to it, and maybe you got more comfortable, and you got better at it, and you had more interactions, and it became easier and easier and easier. But you had to go through this barrier where to meet somebody, we're in there with them face to face, in a bar, in a restaurant, in a club, in any kind of setting. And you had to overcome that fear of rejection, of your timidity. And it was not easy, right? And it developed a skill. And women had something similar. They had to deal with men directly. And that meant sometimes men were kind of frightening and kind of, too much, came on too strong. But you had to deal with that. You had to understand how to negotiate that kind of situation where a man is continually after you. That's like a social skill that you have to learn, how to handle these interactions. And now when it's you're not having that. Okay, yes, you swiped here and you're going out and you're meeting that person, right? But there's already some interest there involved. You didn't have to go up and make that first bold kind of step or deal with that person coming after you in a bar or whatever. And so something social is missing. A skill is missing in your your skill set, right? And so it's a problem. And also, the other thing I would say is to fall in love with somebody requires opening yourself up and being vulnerable, and the possibility of being rejected, the possibility of pain, of being of a breakup, right? It can be very debilitating, these kinds of experiences, and we've all been through them. But people are more afraid now than ever of being vulnerable, of being open to another person, of experiencing that kind of pain. And it makes people afraid of relationships. Now, it's not all bad. Some things have gotten better. Some things about the relationships between men and women have gotten better. Men have had to become probably more sensitive and aware, and it's not completely a man's world anymore. Some things have gotten better. Also, if you're not straight, things have gotten a lot better. But in some ways, it's more difficult for young people, and I can understand that because of the harshness of the world that they're growing up in makes you much less open to the pain and the vulnerability of a relationship. And the swiping makes it so much harder to understand the social element in dealing with in a seduction. So.
For someone who's not in their 20s, that was so spot on. And I think you absolutely are the person to talk about this. That really resonated. I think it resonates with a lot of people. What you mentioned about, the fear of rejection, which became way, way bigger than it used to be because dating apps basically removed, any kind of rejection. And then, what you mentioned about vulnerability and how it's required, and people nowadays, they don't have that openness anymore. Super fascinating. Something I hear all the time when it comes to dating advice is just be yourself, be authentic. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, it has some truth to it. I mean, as I mentioned before, with the game, the pickup artist game, that there's nothing less seductive than you read a book, you read Robert Greene's Art of Seduction, and you're applying these tactics to somebody, right? You're not being real, you're not being authentic, you're not being, okay, so that's not seductive. On the other hand, if you're just who you are, then that's not going to work either. So if I want to date you and I just wear the kind of clothes that I wear in the house, like shorts and a t-shirt, and then I just take you to the pub where I, have my usual food and beer, that's not seductive. That's being who I am. That's what I normally would like. That's me. No. You dress nicely. You put some effort into it. All right, that's not how you normally would necessarily be. You take them to a place that you think is going to interest them. It isn't normally what you would do in your day-to-day life. You can't be completely yourself because there's no mystery involved. There's no interest. There's no spark going on. You have to create a little bit of mystery. The person can't know exactly who you are. If you just tell them everything about yourself and you just give them everything that you have on social media, they know everything about you. There's no need to be fascinated by it. The art of seduction, I can tell you very simply, is when I leave you, not after the podcast, but after, a date of some sort, and you're thinking about me, I have seduced you. Okay? To the degree that you're thinking about me and that I got inside of your head, I have seduced you. Okay? Okay, that skill, that ability to do that isn't necessarily authentic. It's not necessarily who I am. It's I understand. So it's like a dance. People in the world today are too black and white. They're too, I've got to be authentic, or I've got to learn how to use these tactics. It's both. You're being natural. You know that you're a rake. You know that you're a coquette, and you're bringing that out. But you also understand the psychology of other people and how you have to play to people's individuality and what will get under their skin and what will make them think about you the next day, right? So if you're a man who just loves to talk about himself and brag about all of your great achievements, you're being natural, you're being authentic, but you're also being a real turnoff. You're being a real anti-seducer. So learn some skills. Learn to shut up, for instance, and don't be so authentic, and learn how to control yourself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I always thought about this, just be yourself. It's like, but what if being yourself, isn't enough to get someone?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about learning some skills or unlearning some things like you mentioned. And, overall bettering yourself as a person as well, because I guess some people are naturally born, or not necessarily born, but they grew up in an environment where their parents taught them how to listen, for instance, or, they learned some skills. But what if you didn't, and then you lack the skills and you have all these anti-seductive qualities, like you only talk about yourself, then it's actually a good idea to not be yourself and to learn some skills and maybe not do some things. So super, super interesting take on it, because it's quite controversial as well to say, no, don't be yourself, don't be authentic. So, when it comes to people not being authentic and wearing masks, how can you actually, see through people's masks? Are there ways to kind of see through, these masks and read people?
Well, yes, it depends on the situation, but so, the people who are giving you individualized attention and seem to be interested in you, they have to have a quality that is social, that's pro-social, right? Of course, that can be faked. And there are psychopaths in this world, sociopaths, whatever you want to call them, who are good at listening only to gather information to manipulate with you and hurt you with. But you can usually pick that up in their body language, right? I tell people that with narcissists, I said this before, there's a kind of distance in their eyes. They're listening to you, they're talking to you, but there's a deadness there. It's not connecting. And, I'm saying something kind of strange here. I mean, eyes are what they are. Eyes are just eyes. But you can feel through the eyes something inside a person's soul. I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry to use a word like soul, but you can. You can see in their eyes whether they have general interest in other people or they're only inside their own mind all of the time. You can see that there's something bitter about this. Envy is something you can read in people's eyes. I wrote about that in The Laws of Human Nature. There's this kind of fake look, and they seem to be interested in you, but the eyes, there's something going on where they're revealing their envy. And in the ancient world, they call it the evil eye. The evil eye was the eye of envy. You can sense that in people's eyes. They reveal so much. I had a chapter in The Laws of Human Nature that I think is important. It was about nonverbal communication. And this is all about nonverbal communication, but it's also about people's patterns of behavior. So if there is a woman, and I'm just saying woman because it could be a man, who has all this drama in her life, and she's always been the victim. There's always these terrible men that they've been involved with. They did this, that, the other. And it's also women. They're always bitter women who are jealous and who've hurt her. And she's had so much drama in her life. There's a pattern there. There's a pattern of what I called in 48 Laws of Power, infection, right? They are actually the ones who bring on all the bad things in their life because they love drama. They love having all this emotional bullshit around them, okay? So their actions can also, the people's past can reveal that you're dealing with an infecting type. They're too dramatic, okay? But oftentimes it's the body that reveals it. And you can see the way the relaxed quality in their body language. In a seduction setting, when people mirror each other, so if I move my arm this way, then the woman does that a few minutes later, unconsciously, she's falling under my spell, because my relaxed behavior is inducing a similar relaxed reaction in her. So to read people's masks, you have to shut off all your intellectual crap, all your verbalizing, all your thinking, and be attentive to the body. The body will tell you, because I could say anything with my words. I could say, you're so beautiful, I'm in love with you, you're just wonderful, and I'm lying. But I can't lie with my eyes, I can't lie with my mouth, I can't lie with my body language. It tells the truth. I can say I love you, but my eyes are just kind of dead, and it's just a form, and it's just words.
The fact that you feel confident about yourself is very seductive in itself. It has an attractive power. You know, I talk in The Art of Seduction of charisma. I have a whole chapter on the charismatic and the origin of charisma. And what I define charisma is, there's a person who has a kind of inner light inside of them. They're so confident that they kind of glow with that confidence, that their words are kind of revealing it, their eyes are glowing, their gestures are glowing, and they're very charismatic. It could be a Malcolm X, it could be a Marilyn Monroe, it could be a John F. Kennedy, it could be a Mick Jagger, whomever, right? We sense this incredible confidence in them, this power, and it's like an inner lantern that just makes everything glow, and we are so attracted to that. That's what charisma is. Why are we attracted to it? Because we envy people who have that kind of confidence. We wish we could have that, and we find it very compelling. We want to know them. We think that some of it perhaps will rub off on us. I know in working with 50 Cent, I wrote a book with him. This guy is very charismatic. Mm-hmm. He's extremely seductive. He's one of those men that I mentioned earlier who's like in that pantheon of great seducers, and I've seen him up front doing his seduction. Mm-hmm. So I know, I speak from experience. And he has this incredible charisma, this insane confidence. It's not in what he says, it's not in his eloquence, it's just in how he carries himself, mm-hmm. right? And it could be a little bit cocky sometimes if we've all seen from him. But man, it is so seductive, and women go crazy over things like that. And men will go crazy over that in women as well. So confidence is extremely important in the realm of seduction. You can almost not go wrong with it. Yes, you can border on being insane and grandiose. Yeah. But the feeling of that person is comfortable and confident and has that kind of inner, force, energy that's coming up from somewhere they don't know is very powerful and very compelling. So, and the lack of confidence is extremely anti-seductive.
It is very. Probably hurt the relationship. If your partner is always lacking confidence in themselves, it doesn't make you feel attracted to them, right?
Right.
So what would you say if someone's been through a breakup after breakup, or even just one bad breakup, and they feel heartbroken or closed off? How can they reclaim that confidence? What would you say to that person if they've lost confidence on how to reclaim it themselves? And also, if your partner has lost confidence and you're in a long-term relationship, how can you help someone gain confidence in a relationship? So individually, how do you reclaim it? And then your partner is lacking it.
Well, there's several ways to answer that. I mean, seduction is almost like a skill. It's almost like being able to hit a baseball and bat 300.
Yes.
So the best thing you can do after a bad relationship is go back in the game and try and meet other women and go back in and if you fail, to have a kind of a light attitude and not care. But closing yourself off will make it harder, each time harder to get outside of yourself, right? I can remember one time I was in New York. I was young. I was maybe 24. I was on the subway, and I just received some great news about my career, about this thing that I had written, right?
24, yep.
Yeah, and I was on the subway going in somewhere in Manhattan, and all of a sudden, like these women were looking at me, and I'm not saying that never usually happens.
Right.
So I'm not bragging.
Yes.
What's going on here? Wow. And this one really attractive woman. What's going on here? And then I can't forget that moment. It stuck out of my mind so strongly. Like there's this energy that I had that they were picking up and they were sensing it and they were attracted to it. I didn't say anything. I just heard. It wasn't we didn't have a phone then. I just had heard it and I was really happy, in a great mood. But I'm certain that energy was kind of projecting itself onto other people.
Yes.
So seduction is a skill, and getting out there and trying your hand at meeting other women and going through the process, you'll learn about yourself. Don't try and take things so personally. Get back in the game. By being defensive and going into your shell and saying, oh, I don't want to get hurt again, you're going to make it harder each time to get out of that shell.
Yes.
So that other gender is kind of mysterious to us. We don't really know them. Right? They have a different world, a different personality, right? But the more you interact with women or men, the more you can kind of get a sense of what drives them and motivates. You can't ever totally understand them. A man can never ever understand a woman. There's always a big mystery there eventually.
Yes.
Thank God there is. But to the degree that you interact with women or men in any situation, you're kind of learning about them. You're getting more comfortable with them, right?
Yes.
So a lot of great male seducers had sisters. And a lot of great female seductresses had brothers.
Interesting.
They grew very comfortable with that male or female presence.
And they might have been around the sister's friends, or the woman might have been around their brother's guy friends and been around that energy more.
Right. So if you had just brothers, women seem kind of scary or weird. Or what do they want? And the opposite is true.
Yeah.
So getting outside yourself, interacting with women, you'll get to feel more confident, you'll learn more, and you'll be more comfortable in their presence. So don't go into a shell. That's the main thing.
That's the key. And what about, did you have something else?
No, you had a second part.
What about if your partner, you're in a relationship for 10 years, and whatever reason your partner, man or woman, is lacking confidence. They're insecure, they're doubting themselves over and over. What could the other partner do to help them reclaim their confidence? Or is that not something you can do?
No, you can do that. You can find what it is that they need validation about, and you can, give them pep talks and make it clear to them. This is the most important thing, Louis. Make it clear to them that you still have confidence in them. You haven't lost it. Because the sense that other person is losing faith in you and your abilities is deadly.
That's big.
So if you care about that person and you don't want to see them go down the drain with their insecurities, make it clear that you haven't lost faith in them and show it to them in certain ways. Whatever it is that they're worried about, show them that you still believe that they can accomplish something. The relationship I've been in, it predates the 48 Laws of Power just barely, right? And before the 48 Laws of Power, I was a nobody. I had no money. I had no success. I was very frustrated. I was depressed.
Really?
I was very depressed, even bordering on suicidal.
Wow.
I was 37. I hadn't going anywhere. It didn't bother her. She had faith in me. She had confidence in me, right? She saw that something probably would happen. And, and then it did with the 48 Laws. But, I could sense that. She could sense that there was something I could do, right? So she kept boosting me about my writing and about my career. So what is it that that person is insecure about? Boost them up, make them feel like you haven't lost faith in them. And that will be almost enough in itself.
What are a couple skills you wish you would have mastered earlier in life that maybe you've mastered now, or maybe you haven't yet, that you wish you would have?
I wish I mastered a 3-point jump shot.
Okay. 3-point jump shot. Yeah. You're a 2-hand shooter? Yeah.
No. I don't know. Because when it came time to write that book, I had learned a lot about researching. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe about like marketing, because I'm not very good at that, to be honest with you. That's why I rely on people like Ryan Holiday, who know their shit, as opposed to me, who knows nothing.
Yeah.
So I wish I had been a little smarter about things like that, because I was so much in my head into my books and my research writing that I never really paid attention. Wish I'd been a little more hard-edged that way.
Learning about promotion and marketing.
Yeah.
It's true, because my brother, who's one of the best jazz violinists in the world.
Really?
Yeah, he's arguably #1 in the world at jazz violin. And he said there's so many talented artists that think they're going to be discovered, like in their basement or something. But you have to learn how to master your art, and then how to master the art of selling yourself.
Definitely.
Because if no one knows who you are, then you're not going to have opportunities. You're not going to be able to monetize your craft, your art, or have, provide a lifestyle for yourself. So, and if no one is aware of your art, then you're doing a disservice to the world by just hiding it for yourself or for a couple friends.
A lot of artists have that problem because they think that kind of sullies the what they're producing, and they're afraid of that part of the game. But that's why a lot of artists fail. The ones who are successful know how to play that game of power to some degree. They're not so naive, right?
The game of power, what do you mean by that?
Well, take the art world, for instance, something I know fairly well from people who I've known personally. It's a cutthroat industry, right? The number of kids who go to art school is like hundreds of thousands in the United States. The number of artists who can make a living, you can count them on 2 hands, right? Okay, so what's going on here? Well, it's that it's really, really difficult to make it. And who are these people who make it? They've gotten tough, and they've learned how to market themselves. They've learned how to promote. They learned what sells right now, and they've mastered that aspect of the game. Here in Los Angeles, every other person is an actor or a screenwriter wannabe, right? And they think they've got all the talent in the world, but they're not disciplined. They don't take a day-to-day approach, and they don't know how to sell themselves. I mean, I deal with that all the time. I've dealt consulting with actors who don't know, like in just the audition aspect, they don't know how to present themselves and sell their skills. They think just their natural ability is enough, but it's not.
So what skill is that? The art of selling yourself, marketing? Is that just communication skills? Is that understanding human nature and how people think and building them up? Like, what would you say that would be?
It's the whole sandwich there. Yeah. It's like
it's all of your books combined.
Yes, it is. I'm afraid.
Seduction, power, mastery, all these things.
Yeah. So you have to understand the power game to some degree. You have to understand that there are people who control your business, your industries. They have more power than others. They have egos. They're insecure. If you don't know how to appeal to them, if you don't know how to appeal to their self-interest, they're not going to finance you. They're not going to help you. You have to understand the political game. You have to be able to play to what's going to please them. You have to be able to get rid of your ego sometimes and do things that maybe aren't exactly what you want to do, but is the right career move. You also have to know how to package things.
Yes.
And I talk a lot about that in my books, in the 48 Laws of Power. You have to understand human psychology. People want drama. They want something that stands out. They want something that's strong, that's forceful, that's impactful, right? And you're sitting here writing something that kind of meanders, that sells it kind of in this half-baked way, etc. No, you've got to hit directly. You have to hit people's emotions. We're emotional animals. And that's sort of the key to marketing, is hitting people's emotions, not their intellect, not their ideas, right? I mean, it's the whole thing. You have to understand human nature, you have to understand psychology, you have to understand politics and egos.
You gotta learn a lot in life just to get, anything that's inside of you out and being semi-successful.
Yeah.
It's not the craft itself, it's everything else around the craft.
Unfortunately, because, Steve Jobs and Wozniak, I forget his first name.
Yeah, Steve Wozniak. I think.
Wozniak was by far the more brilliant person. He was the most brilliant person with computers of his time in the late 70s, early 80s. Steve Jobs was really very weak when it came to computing and things like that. But look who made it. The person who understood marketing, right? He understood
human psychology, marketing, persuasion, the political game, the theatrics of communication.
Theatrics, definitely, right?
Yes.
So talent is important, but it will only get you so far. There are so many talented basketball players just in the United States, but the ones who make it are not always the most talented, but they're the most disciplined of all.
Absolutely. I played with so many athletes better than me on teams that weren't disciplined enough or committed enough just to do the extra effort and work to get to the next level.
Right.
To be on the field, to stay on the field, to get thrown the ball to get the tryouts or whatever it was to the next level. And I would just say that I had more commitment than a lot of people that were better than me. And I just remember being like, man, there's guys in the pickup games in basketball who were freaks that could have played, but they just didn't lack the discipline and the consistency or the attitude. And so they get kicked off the team because they just had a bad attitude.
Right.
So you got to learn all these other things for sure. What do you think is the skill that a lot of people master that's actually wasting their time?
Never really thought of that. You can try too many things in life. You can try to learn too many things, right? And never master one of them, right? So the temptation in our culture is, with all the access to information, all the things going on in the media, to think that I'm going to start picking up the guitar now, and then I'm also going to learn this, and I'm going to learn that. So people are kind of trying too many different things, and they're not like learning one thing really, really, really well.
Yes.
And so that's kind of the main fault I see in a lot of people, particularly when they're young, because it's very difficult when there's so many things out there and there's so many temptations. And
I think it's a balance of it, because there's a book, I think his name's David Epstein. Do you know David Epstein? He wrote a book called Sports Gene, I think it was called, but he also wrote a book called Range, which talks about all these successful people who actually had a range of skills that later in life, I think I mentioned this before with you, like you had a range of all these skills that maybe you did okay at, but didn't really optimize fully and succeed at, but the range of skills you had created these weird books.
Yeah.
I mean, these weird, powerful books that were different at the time, that were unique, and if you didn't have that range of trying all these things, maybe you wouldn't have created this unique product at the end.
I agree with it, but I there's a little element that I would twist there. Right. So, for instance, I had learned researching skills when I worked in Hollywood and in journalism, and that's actually a skill.
Yes.
I learned how to work libraries like you had no idea how to work a library, right? And I'd done it for years.
Oh man, that's a lot of time and energy.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't like just kind of a semi-skill that I possessed. That was a real skill.
Yes.
Right? And the journalism that I had learned was, 4 or 5 years of writing under a deadline, making things concise and dramatic. I wasn't wildly successful, but I could say it was a skill. So when I combined everything, and then my knowledge of history, etc., there was definitely a range, and in that range, I totally agree with that writer.
Yes.
But if they were kind of mediocre skills, I don't know how it would have all fallen into place,
So it was all within the ability of writing and researching. It wasn't like, I'm going to do all these other things that aren't associated with
Exactly.
writing. Gotcha.
Yeah, and for mastery, I interviewed Paul Graham, because I agree with that idea, and I advocated learning 4 or 5 skills and then combining them in a
Yes.
unique way. But he was like the man. He's one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs of our time. He started. He went to college and learned hack computer skills. He was going to go into AI early on. Didn't like it. Didn't like the politics. He dropped out and he went to Italy to study painting, right? And he studied painting for several years and became really good at it, and very much really good at design, etc. Then he came back to New York, and he heard an ad on the radio for Netscape and how the future of the internet was selling products on the internet, which no one had ever done before. And he goes, maybe I could take my design skills and my knowledge of computers and create something that would be very aesthetically pleasing and very easy to navigate, would be like, and it ended up being the first kind of online store that Yahoo bought, and on and on. But he was really good at those 2 things, you know. Steve Jobs was really great at the design element of technology and so forth. So I'd be a little wary of telling people that you can kind of learn 4 or 5 things kind of middling.
Right.
Because the main thing you want, the main thing that'll get you ahead in life is your level of enthusiasm and excitement.
Over anything else?
Yeah, your love of something. So you have to kind of learn and be energized and really excited by it. And if you're just kind of piddling around trying different things, you won't bring that kind of...
A friend of mine years ago, probably 18 years ago, told me that the world makes room for passionate people. And there's a quote by the coach of the Green Bay Packers. What's his name?
Lombardi.
Yes, that if you're not
icon.
If you're not fired up with enthusiasm, you'll be fired with enthusiasm. Something like that,
it.
right? I'm paraphrasing, but if you're not fired up with enthusiasm, then you'll be kicked off the team.
Yeah.
Because we need people here who are excited and passionate about what they're doing. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
Right.
And we're going to lose if you're not fired up with enthusiasm. So I think that's probably one of the greatest skills, is having the energy to have enthusiasm about what you're doing,
right,
to get yourself the opportunities over than the mastery of itself with a negative attitude.
Right.
I would say.
Yeah.
It's no fun having someone on your team who's really good at something, but just mean and nasty and dragging and not on time and whatever. You're just like,
yeah.
It doesn't matter how talented you are.
Right.
It's the other skills that come along with it.
Right.
What if someone's struggling to accomplish their goals? We've talked about fear a little bit. You know, it's been holding people back from trying and getting out there. But what if they've got their goals, they've got the stuff, they're willing to go after it, but they're struggling accomplishing goals? Do you have any strategies or tactics to setting up your life in a way to accomplish goals more?
Yeah, I mean, so I call it kind of a ladder of descending goals. I think that's one of the entries in that book.
Okay.
So what you want is a mix of things, because a lot of success in life is creating this kind of balance. So you want an overall goal for yourself. Let's say you want to accomplish this business that you want to start, right? But you're not able to get there. You're not able to make the bridge to it, okay? So you say, this is my long-term goal. And then you build a ladder of descending goals of small things to get there. And within it, so let's say your goal is 5 years, you're going to start the business. Then within that, you've got months and you've got weeks and you've got days, and you're building small goals that you can reach and that are reachable. So I want to start my business. It's really hard out there. There's one thing that I don't think I'm good at. All right, well, tomorrow I'm going to start learning this new skill. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to read this book, right? Give yourself a goal that you can reach in a week, right? Or in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So that what's killing you is you're thinking too long term, and you can't get there, and it's kind of making it seem like it's impossible. It's killing your spirit, right? You're too ambitious. You're thinking too far ahead. You need smaller, reachable goals, right? So your great business, your great book, your great podcast has other little steps you have to take to get there. Create a step you can reach in a month, a week, or whatever, and reach it. Don't make it too difficult, but don't make it too easy. Make it. I always tell people to make it a little bit above what you think you can do, and you'll get there. But if you give yourself a goal in a month, that is a step towards creating this larger thing, and you reach it, you'll have a sense of pride and accomplishment. You did something, right?
Yes.
You got part of the way there, and you know, like with determination, you can, you're on your way, and you can do that again, and you can make another smaller goal. And you're not paying attention to 5 years from now, you're paying attention to tomorrow's goal. Your eyes are focused on these small steps. You don't lose sight of the larger goal, because then you'll get mired in details. It's driving you, but your main focus is on reaching what you've set yourself up for, month by month, by week by week by week. Baby steps.
Yes.
If you do something every day and you reach these things, the sense of you've never done anything is what's killing you. You need to have a sense that you actually have something to show for it. You actually have reached part of the way there.
Yes.
And believe me, when I start a book, it's like, oh my God, I can't, how am I going to make it? Well, I start off simply, and I go from simple goals, and I have a process I go through, and I don't worry about 3 years down the road. I worry about what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Do you think anger, resentment, frustration is a greater power to create over love? Or if we came from a place of love, could it be that much more powerful, our creation?
Well, that's a great question, and it really depends on who you are. Sometimes those dark energies have more kind of power behind them. They impel you.
They do.
And love, it just kind of love doesn't necessarily make you want to write a book, although it can. But for me personally, I'm speaking from personal experience, it wasn't love that made me want to write a book. It was anger and bittess, right?
I'll show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you mentality.
Whereas, I love this, I love that. It's not gonna. And the reason why that happens is people in our day-to-day life are so repressed. We have to be so politically correct.
Yeah.
We have to be so pleasant and smiling, etc., that when your work expresses anger or expresses pain, people love it. They're drawn to it because finally someone's expressing what I'm feeling, but no one else is talking about, right?
That's powerful, yeah.
Yeah. The person that I think a lot about in the dark side is Kobe Bryant, and I was going to talk to him about it if I could have, because he confessed this. He had a lot of dark energy. He had a lot of anger, and he was so competitive. He wanted to crush you on the basketball court, and he spoke of it in those terms. It wasn't like a friendly little basketball game. This was war. But like Michael Jordan, he channeled this energy into being a good teammate and to just defeating the other team, working as a good player, a colleague with his teammates. But he learned to channel it. Early on, it kind of destroyed him a little bit. It kind of ruined his relationship with Shaq in a way. But then he learned that anger, etc., was the source of his power. It's kind of like Star Wars and Jedi type thing, and how you use that dark energy and transform it into something positive.
Do you think there's a basketball player or an athlete or someone who could not have dark energy and anger?
Could have love.
Who could be just like, I'm just grateful for my family, my wife, my kids, like my health, and I'm just going to go out and channel my gifts to serve, to inspire, because I love the sport. Do you think there's...
No.
You think anger is the way? It's like learning to channel anger
and competitiveness and ambition and the desire to win, is a very powerful motivating factor.
Very powerful.
Maybe if you're an ice skater or a sport like that where you're working in pairs and something,
dancing or
you don't maybe want to have that kind of issue. I can get that, but like football or basketball or even baseball, I don't think so. And all the greats that I've studied all have pretty much a very similar profile. And there have been examples of players who don't have that drive, who are more kind of into being friendly and nice and loving, and they don't go nearly as far. I'm afraid to say it. The greatest players, LeBron James, is probably the greatest player now. You're from Cleveland, right?
I'm from Columbus, but Ohio.
Ohio, it's all
We're Ohio, yeah.
Are you a Laker fan?
I'm a Laker fan now because of LeBron.
Okay.
I'm a LeBron fan.
Okay, well, me too now.
Yeah.
But that guy is driven,
Driven.
right? You can see it in his face. He doesn't want to lose. He's not going out there with love in his heart. I mean, he's a very generous person. He's a very loving person outside basketball. But on the court, no, I don't think so.
He's an animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an animal on the court. It's interesting because I was very anger-driven from my teens to my 20s. Maybe a little bit in my early 30s. I was driven by anger to compete, to be the best, to win. But it always left me achieving and accomplishing and kind of proving people wrong, but it always left me feeling like still unfulfilled inside. How can someone be driven by anger or frustration, bitterness, and achieve and feel peace at the same time? Is that possible?
Yeah, because that's not, the goal in it is not like beating other people and humiliating them. That's the dark side, and that's giving into the dark side. The goal is to be the best at your sport, to win a championship, and then to give back to the community, to make a lot of money, and then donate a lot of it, or become, like LeBron has done with the schools in Ohio, etc. To be a good role model. But when you reach the top, you have that luxury. And so it's more like, what are you doing this for? So when I had my 48 Laws of Power, I'm sorry to talk always about myself, it's kind of the narcissist in me.
It's all good.
I admit it. It wasn't about making fun of all those Hollywood executives who I disliked. Then it wouldn't have been the book that it was. It was, I want to help people. I want to use my energy, my frustrations, to show people that they don't have to suffer the way I suffer, other people suffer in the work world. These are the laws of power. You don't have to be so naive. You can understand that you don't need to never outshine the master. So I was able to put my energy in there and get some of my yayas out in doing it, but for a higher purpose, to help people.
Right.
I think that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
And so I tell people, you feel anger, but there's a lot of injustice in this world, particularly nowadays, right? A lot of things are just wrong in this world today. And if I were young, my anger would be exploding because there's so much that's wrong. Channel it into a worthy cause, into justice, into leading some kind of movement. That's a brilliant way to take your dark energy and metamorphose it into something really positive.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, because in my last book, Martin Luther King was one of my heroes that I wrote about. He had some of those frustrations and some of that anger. He grew up in Atlanta where there wasn't as much racism because he was in a relatively good neighborhood. His father was a preacher. He saw racism, but he was a little bit shielded from it. And then he had his first encounters, particularly when he went up north to like Boston. Believe it or not, it was in the north that he had his first real encounters. He had a few before that, and then he's like, God, he was really angry about it. It really was an eye-opener. And he learned that he couldn't give into that kind of emotion. What he was going to do with his life is he was going to use it to help blacks in the South. He was going to return to the South. His path, he thought, was to stay in Boston, New England, because it was like cushy, etc. But then he realized, no, I've got to take all this bitterness that I feel and I've got to go back to the South at the risk of my own life and help my people, So working for a cause is probably the best way you can channel some of that dark energy.
So how do we be angry about a cause, but not being a prisoner to that thing, that unjust thing that's happening in the world? Is there a way we can still be angry and in movement and creation mode, but not be a prisoner to that situation?
Well, what would being a prisoner mean?
I think allowing it to affect you emotionally, to consume you, to control you, to make you focused on that thing all the time, as opposed to just being
it's
in love.
where your energy is. Is it about you? Is it about you and your emotions and your anger, or is it about helping people and about the cause? So is it for something greater than yourself? And if it's for something greater than yourself, then you're not a prisoner of it.
Got it.
Because you're getting outside your own ego and you're actually working to help people. Okay? But I can tell you, a lot of social movements and revolutions, if you want to call it, or reform movements, they peter out because they lose energy. They lose a drive. The initial impetus sort of isn't quite there. And, you've got to be able to keep it alive, you know?
How do you keep it alive?
Because you feel nothing has changed. The injustice is there. I mean, look at someone like Martin Luther King, what he had to put up with constantly. Constant failures, constant rejection. He dealt with so much envy, it was insane. Even people within the movement were constantly belittling and criticizing him. But he kept his minds focused on the greater prize, the ultimate goal, which is what you want to focus on. But you have to use that energy or it's going to peter out, because life will wear you away. You'll get older, you relax, you don't want to have to spend so much time doing this. You know, and you get soft and the energy dries up. And you need that energy. Every time I write a book, I'm starting from ground zero and I'm going, okay, Robert, what's going to motivate you? What's like something that really irritates you and it makes you angry and pissed off, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because now feeling that, you're going to get over that mountain of writing the book, and you're going to feel, every time you write a chapter, you're going to feel that emotional kind of thing in your gut, and you're going to express it. But I'm not doing it for me. It's because I know it's going to help people, you know?
Yeah.
So for my new book, I'm really frustrated and irritated by how limited people are about their thinking. And I'm not blaming people, because I have the same problem. It's like, the world is this insanely awesome thing. To be alive, do you know what it means to be alive? Do you know what everything had to fall into, go back to the Big Bang, which is what I'm writing about now. And all the little pieces that had to fall into place for life, even to begin on the Earth, and then for animals, and then for a giant asteroid to hit Earth, some 70 million years ago, so the dinosaurs are wiped out. None of this you wouldn't be here. Lewis wouldn't be here if your parents hadn't met. So your life is like this insanely unlikely thing that ever happened. Do you know how awesome it is? Do you know how awesome it is to look out and see stars in the sky or things around you? And people are not. They're locked in their little banal worlds of social media, etc. They're not opening their minds up to what it means to really be alive. And it makes me angry.
That's good.
So that's why I'm gonna write the book.
What's the title of this book? Are you sharing that yet or no?
Yeah, The Law of the Sublime.
So it's about how we can think differently, or how we can open our minds to possibilities?
Yeah, it's to reanimate your soul so you feel excited about things, so you feel like, when you were a child, you were curious about so many things, you were open to so many experiences, things were constantly wowing you. And then you become blasé and kind of cynical, and you don't want new experiences because they kind of mess with your